Hi there. I think we have a quorum on board here. We have Commissioners Moore, myself, Russ Bartlett, Larry, Seppi, Nomi is here, and we have Mayor Nisa on board, and Gary will be joining us. So I think we have a quorum, so I think we can gavel us into order in this meeting. Okay. So with that, we will go through the agenda. We have the items not on the agenda. Any comments? Any public comments to be made? All right, so taking that, we'll go forward with the items for consideration and action. The Preservation Award for the nomination for 2021 Historic Preservation Award. Gary has submitted that for 1365 Grant Road, which is actually just outside of my limit. We're really close to it, but we're very close to it. We know the property very well. We've been through it, and anyway, Gary has provided a nomination for the award for 1365 for the family that has done a great job in preserving and restoring the house. Any comments on that?
I don't have any personal experience with the house. I know it came up in 2015, but I can't remember it. So it sounds good. I mean, they worked very hard to
Is that the house we saw?
to keep the house in good shape. And I went to see it today, and it was in very good shape.
Yeah.
I do have my nomination speech prepared if you're
Oh, goody.
ready for that.
Please.
To the chair, if I can give a quick introduction and then allow Mr. Hudden to provide his presentation, would that be okay with you?
Please.
Okay, thank you. So the item, as you're aware, before you is a work item for the commission. It's the Historic Preservation Award. It was adopted and created by the City Council by resolution back in 2012. The intent of the award is to recognize exemplary rehabilitation and preservation of historic properties. For many years, it's been recognition of individuals. It can be also for groups or for organizations in the community, as long as they meet the criteria outlined in the staff report and in the original resolution. Today we have received, or this year we received one nomination for the Historic Preservation Award, and that nomination was received for 1365 Grant Road, which was a significant rehabilitation, which included new foundations and significant rehabilitation and reconstruction of numerous portions of the building. In order for the commission to make a determination, they need to consider all the written information provided by Gary or any other public testimony. And then the award recipient will be recognized through a proclamation, which is currently scheduled as a second meeting in May. However, we will need, if the commission does choose or select a 1365 grant, then we will try to coordinate with the homeowners to guarantee that they're there at that time. This ends staff's presentation unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Any comments, rebuttals, updates?
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, shall we hear from Gary?
Yeah.
Okay. Honored commissioners, my nomination tonight is to recognize a project, the adaptive restoration of the 1913 Craftsman style farmhouse at 1365 Grant Road. The house was built for Oliver Holt on an apricot orchard over 100 years ago. The house stayed with the Holt family until it was sold to the Reoke family in 2015. The Reokes recognized and appreciated the importance of owning and protecting such a property and came up with a plan to restore it. Some of you know this project. It came before the commission in November 2015 for your approval to allow the removal and replacement of several exterior windows, plus the addition of a patio slab along one side of the structure. As required and appropriate for such an effort, the Reoaks hired a professional, Jill Johnson, with Historic Preservation Services. Her lengthy report is part of the agenda packet. She determined that the proposed exterior alterations would not adversely affect the historic significance of the property and would be consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. You have approved the request and expressed your appreciation for the effort as a way to keep historical properties in Los Altos while allowing homeowners the flexibility to create modern functional homes. With that approval, the Reoaks began a journey of almost 4 years. The journey was not without its challenges. Removing the river rock exposed a brick foundation that did not meet current earthquake standards. The house was raised to allow the installation of a reinforced concrete foundation. Then the bricks and cobblestones were carefully replaced to match the original look. The attention to detail even included mixing mortar samples with different colors to match the yellow color of the original mortar. Halfway through the project, to keep the budget under control, the Reoaks moved from a rental house in Mountain View to a detached in-law unit at the back of their home. The family of 4 with children of ages 3 and 8 at the time lived in a 1-room unit for over a year. The Reoaks loved that they are living in an old orchard, and they have planted many new trees to capture that history. They have apple, cherry, peach, lemon, and more, including, of course, an apricot. The Los Altos History Museum has followed them along the way, and we had a picture and a story in the winter 2019 newsletter to show our appreciation. Now it's your turn. Show your appreciation for the effort by the Reoak family and for doing the restoration with such great attention to detail. Their example should be an inspiration to all Los Altans. It shows what can be done, and seeing nicely restored historic homes is a source of community pride. Daniel Reoak, in his letter to you, tells of the people walking by who thank him for the wonderful house in their neighborhood. Your recognition of this project will encourage similar projects. Please approve the whole house at 1365 Grant Road for the 2021 Historic Preservation Award. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And I totally concur with your comments. You know, we walk by the house all the time on our daily walks, and we watch the progress of the restoration. And we didn't quite know that the family was living in the 1 room behind there. So hats off to them. And it's been a great ride for them. And so I will move.
Oh, I guess I could have had my video on this whole time. Sorry. I was being hiding away there. I apologize.
We heard you 5 by 5 anyway.
Thank
So
you.
I will move that the commission, you know, approve the motion to, you know,
Is there a motion?
award the house.
Could I make a comment here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to thank Gary for his very thorough and passionate nomination. And, you know, you're just such a wonderful citizen of our community and so helpful to the Historical Commission.
I'll turn my video on for that.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate that, Gary.
Thank you, Martha.
I think that it is a wonderful choice for the 2021 Historic Preservation Award. So, then we do need a motion. We have a few steps to go through here.
Okay.
Russ.
Do we need to hear any other comments from the public? Although the public may have.
Given up.
To the chair, so if I could remind on the process a little. So after staff provides the presentation and then the applicant, or Gary in this context, provides the presentation, then typically you would request a public comment, and if there's none, then you would close public comment. And then after the closure public comment, then you would solicit comment from the commissioners and close public comment, and then allow the commissioners to provide any comment. And then if no comment, then ask for a motion and then.
Very well. Any more comments from the public? Hearing none, any comments from the commission?
I'll just repeat what I said. I did go look at the house. It's a very good condition.
Yeah.
And I think we've had another house receive the historical award in a couple of years ago. So this is not the first time to consider a house. So looks good.
Okay. So having heard the comments, I will make a motion that the commission approve the award for 1365 Grant Road.
I second.
Second? Ayes, nays? All,
All in favor?
okay. So moved and approved. Thank you. Okay.
Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Gary.
So our next item is the informational items. We have Margaret Thompson essay contest information updates.
So, so we
John?
did, yeah, thank you. So on Friday, we did receive a list of the individuals who won, the children who won the essay contest. And there are a total of 17. I have made a request today for a copy of all of the essays from Ann Roberts. And once I have the copy of the essays, then I will make sure to make those available to the commissioners, and I will we will put together letters and have those mailed out this week. Once we get the documents from Ann Roberts, we'll mail out letters to each of the parents, and then we'll mail letters out to the individual schools. In the past, I've used the letters from Ann Roberts directly, but we've had multiple years where the spelling of individual children's names were incorrect, and the parents were very upset. So I'm being very careful this year. We learn every year. I'm trying to be sensitive to any concerns. Once I have confirmed their spelling of their names and the parents' names, then we will also make the request for the checks. So I'm hoping to get that this week, because it does take a little bit of time to get those checks. The hope is to have that at the second meeting in May, where traditionally we have a ice cream social. Again, we're still, I guess, encumbered by COVID, and traditionally the mayor is, after the ice cream social and the awarding of the certificates, then at the council meeting, the mayor provides the checks individually to each of the children. So we'll have to talk to the city clerk's office and see if they wanted us to mail them out directly, or if there was some way the mayor wanted to try to address that, since it is now the second year that we're not able to follow the normal process. So that will occur this week, and then you'll get copies of those. We'll also post all the essays on the website. Of course, we'll be very careful about what we post, because since we are aware that parents are concerned regarding addresses and things like that. So we'll make sure to remove any reference that may raise concerns for the public.
Sean? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
And I'm finished. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask what the date is of the awards. It's in May? Sometime?
Yes, it's the second meeting in May. Let me get that date for you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I will send what I traditionally do for the commission is I try to send out invitations to it, or a calendar invite, so that each of you are aware of the calendar date. And if you'd like to attend, then you're welcome to attend on that date if you'd like. It'll be likely virtual, of course, in May still.
So we know, are we sure of that? That's what I was wondering about. Because it's an outdoor ceremony at the History Museum.
Yeah, so we have a regular council meeting date of May 25th, but it's a lot of it is driven on how quickly Ann Roberts is able to give me the names and the confirming essays.
Sean,
Yes.
Sean, are you able to hear me? This is Ann Roberts.
Hello, Ms. Roberts.
We can hear you.
Okay, I did email you back that I am making copies of the essays and will put them in envelope for you and put it in the box as you requested. And I'm only doing the essays. I will keep the cover sheet separate because we don't want those to be on the website. And as far as an in-person type of ice cream social on the side, I would need to find out often as many as 30 people, that sort of thing. And I'm not sure how many of the members of the education committee feel comfortable in attending, but you know, you could that. But double checked against the colors. I think I did.
Can't hear her.
It's cutting out, Anne. The audio's cutting out.
Yeah.
I don't know if she can hear you. No, me.
So
Oh,
You hear me?
yes.
now we can.
Okay. As far as an out, I'm just not sure because of the number of people, if on the patio, the often 30 or so, if that would be advisable. And I'm not sure how much of the members of the education committee would feel comfortable about that. So, but I will, I've given the list of the winners to Sean, and I plan to give the essays to him on Thursday afternoon or Friday morning to be scanned, to be put on the website.
Sean,
So-
I have a question. I know you said it probably, and then what was the topic this year for the essays?
The topic was really, really good this year. It coincided with the Rise Up exhibit, and it was called Rise Up, Inspiring Women. And we asked, yeah, and we asked the students to talk with their family about some women, either from history or living today, that you admire. Select one woman that you would like to write about. Think about their achievements and obstacles the women encountered throughout their life. What are the qualities she demonstrated in her life and you would like to reflect upon and see in yourself? How has this woman inspired you, and how would you like to be more like her in the future? And we received such outstanding essays. We ended up with, in the fourth grade, with 6 winners instead of 3.
Ooh,
So
wonderful.
we have 17 winners this year. Many of them wrote about famous women, but also many wrote about their grandmothers and their mothers. One of the essays that was particularly touching was by a young man who wrote of his mother, who was a doctor who had passed away from cancer.
Mm.
So we really received some quite outstanding essays. Sadly, we usually receive quite a few 5th and 6th grade. We received a number of 5th grade this year, but only 14 6th graders responded, which was kind of a surprise. We were thinking perhaps it was because of COVID and being online schools. The essays were online this year, which proved to be good, but also very challenging because they were sent in many different ways, and we had to kind of get back to teachers and have them sent as Word documents. But we thought it was a very good topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Mhm.
So to the commission, so the date of the council proclamation will be on the 25th. With the receiving of the essays on Thursday or Friday, I will be able to meet the accounts payable deadlines. A lot of it's driven by when are those checks available, so we can make sure they're available on the date that we give the proclamations. Because if they're off track, then we would need to shift the meeting date, but we'll be able to meet the deadlines, which are many times like 3 weeks in advance of the meeting. So, so the timing will be fine, and I'm looking at the calendar now. So we should have no problem meeting it and being occurring during Historic Preservation Month. So it should be on that month.
Thank you. I really look forward to this event every year. It's a lot of fun. It's great to give out the scoop the ice cream and give the cookies and give the kids a sugar high, and much to the chagrin of the parents. But it's a lot of fun, and I really hope that we can be back on the patio this year and in real life again. So I'm looking forward to that. And I thank everybody who contributed to this and participated. Okay.
We might have to, instead of serving ice cream, maybe get little cups,
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Much better, yeah.
Who's the decision maker here, Sean? Or the many decision makers with respect to whether it's live or?
I think the museum.
Okay.
It's the city of Los Altos.
Oh, it's the city.
Well, I can always reach out and see. I mean, currently, I can reach out and see whether we're able to hold that. I don't know. City Hall isn't currently fully opened yet. So most of us are telecommuting at the moment, but I know there's discussion of reopening in the next month or two. So potentially I could check into it, and then I can get back to each of the commissioners and let them know what I hear
I
from.
still think the decision on should we have the ice cream social is going to have to be the museum because it's on their property.
I think it's a
If
joke.
I may, Chair,
Hi.
if I may address this, Chair.
Please,
Yes.
please, Mayor.
Thank you. So I do think it will be a joint decision between the History Museum and the City of Los Altos. We have to set an example for the rest of the community with hosting social events in person. And so I imagine if this is an event for May, we would need to look at what the current guidelines are. I mean, underlying all these guidelines, as you know, is still, to the extent you can avoid in-person social gatherings, you should. And so I think it's going to be a joint decision on what the guidelines allow and what we're comfortable doing in setting a good example for the broader community. But I will just say we will find a way to celebrate. This sounds so great. I can't wait to read the essays. So we will definitely find ways to celebrate and still hopefully retain the fun element of this whole event.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I think we have finished that informational item. So we can move on to the monthly staff report.
So in response to Commissioner Moore's question regarding the Halsey House and the loss of the tarps on atop the structure, I received a response from Manny Hernandez, who's the Maintenance Services Director, and he advised that the tarps were removed due to the roof of the Halsey House being repaired, so that no further water intrusion would occur. And so since the roof is repaired, then tarps were no longer required. And so that's the reasoning why they were removed.
Right.
In regards to just generally, the staff is still working on Halsey House related reports, and we do plan to return back to City Council, with that information, and then thereafter, City Council provides their input and direction for the commissioners. Then we do plan to bring that back to you so that you can provide direction on the Halsey House itself, and that'll be a future item after Council reviews the item in May of this year, which I believe is currently scheduled for May 11th. And so it's currently, I didn't have it as an informational item for this meeting since there wasn't a lot to report on that item at the moment.
I have a question.
You know me?
I'm still confused as to why we can't hear the presentation from Jeff Lebowski. Everybody who's heard it is so positive about it. And I think it's a way that we could all the commissioners and the 3 commissions and the city council could really come together on something that's going to, have something for everybody. And then we can go from there and get the money to do it. But somehow, I know that Larry Lang and I have heard it because we happened to get invited to a presentation, but nobody else has heard it. There's been a couple people from the Parks and Rec who have heard it. And I don't understand why we can't all hear it.
So part of the reasoning why it's not been brought to the Historical Commission is so that expectation and the direction we received and that we will receive hopefully from council is for each of the commissions to consider each of the proposed alternatives and then provide their individual recommendations to the council. And then in the end, it'll be for council to decide the path that the city will take in regards to the Halsey House. The concern is if the commission itself is reviewing a potential alternative in advance of reviewing all of the alternatives, then there may be.
Okay, I am really confused about what are the alternatives. Is there something that hasn't come to the commission before? We've had at least 3 different things.
So the alternatives would include full rehabilitation consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. It would include mothballing the structure consistent with federal standards. It would consider demolition of the structure. It would also consider adaptive reuse of the building, which is many times a mitigation measure of demolition. And so what Jeff Lebowski is proposing is adaptive reuse of the site, which will negatively impact the historical significance of the building. Now, Jeff Lebowski's, proposal, when you're developing mitigation measures, when you're proposing a demolition or partial demolition, it's not going to be limited to one alternative. There's going to be a whole multitude of alternatives that will be developed through the environmental process. So CEQA will be one of the processes that will establish the alternatives. And so there will be multiple alternatives developed based on direction from the commission and council. And then those will be developed in an environmental document, an environmental impact report. And so, we're a little bit ahead of that process. Typically, the entire environmental process is a process where the commissioners and council are intimately involved and where the public's involved in kind of scoping a lot of the alternatives. So for the commission to potentially be considering one of the potential many alternatives in advance of seeing all the other alternatives which have not been developed yet may be problematic for the commission. And that's been the concern, is that we want to make sure that members of the public are not concerned that a decision's already been made in advance of any public hearings. And that may be the potential conflict that we come across, is if Jeff Lebowski's proposal is brought forward, the members of the public could take the position that this commission has already potentially decided to support Jeff Lebowski's proposal, while there may be other alternatives that other members of the commission, of the public, may support. So we're trying to approach this very carefully and deliberatively. That his proposal will come forward, but first we have to get the council's direction, and then I will get direction from my director and from the city manager on when to schedule Jeff Lebowski's item.
So are the council going to see this? Because it sort of seems odd that the council should make a decision about what to do with less than complete information.
So the consideration of alternatives occurs after the council decides the alternative they want to pursue. And that's only going to be based on if they choose either demolition or adaptive reuse. If they choose mothballing, then there's not a reason to consider potentially Jeff Lebowski's proposal, because if they're going to mothball, then they're going to secure the structure to preserve it, to return at a later time to preserve the structure. Or if they're pursuing a historic or rehabilitation and renovation of the structure, then we're going to restore the structure to its original form, and potentially then the adaptive reuse alternative isn't necessary. So council would have to first consider and agree to either the adaptive reuse or the demolition. And then from that process, there would be direction given on the potential alternatives through the secret process.
Yeah.
So they need to get through that process first.
But again,
before we
the
can get
point
to
here is that the adaptive reuse is the hardest one to imagine. And here we have a privately funded example, simply an example of what that would look like. And so the concern is that as they're choosing among these four, they don't really understand what the choice is, or that they could have better information. And for procedural and bureaucratic reasons, we're purposely preventing them from seeing it.
And we've seen, you know, the adaptive reuse, when was it, 5-6 years ago, with the $3.5 million costs. And you know, you're not gonna get funding for that. And the public has seen the Lebowski. I mean, there were a lot of people at that presentation. And the people I know in the public, the Friends of Historic Redwood Grove, like the Lebowski proposal.
But it's not in the public, right? It was one event that was sort of pseudo invited by the city, and it was not recorded. It's not available to the public.
Was it by the city? I don't know who put it on.
So we
The city
do
was involved.
we do have this item scheduled for council, and so hopefully we can bring this back to you very soon. And then working with the chair or any other commissioners, if you have additional questions, I can reach out to the city manager and to John Biggs, the director, and try to get you additional responses to your questions if you have them.
What's the timeline on this? I mean, this feels like we're taking forever to make a decision. I mean, you guys, we all might as well be Presbyterians.
Or Catholic.
Well,
The timeline is forever.
well, no, I mean, so part of the thing is that this is a very complex, you know, we have a series of very complex alternatives that have to be considered in a whole series of alternatives. So, you know, or different perspectives. So we, you know, as a staff, you know, we have every single department head and non-department heads like myself, and we have Dave Breeze, all of us meeting on a nearly weekly basis, and working with the city attorney's office. You know, we have to look at not merely all of those alternatives and the entire CEQA process, which has to be an alternative consideration. We also have to consider all of the legal implications of all options, so that when the council and even the commissioners discuss these items, that you're very well aware of what the legal implications are for any action that you take, because any action you take, there may be a legal implication. And so for us not to have the city attorney weigh in and evaluate that would, at least from staff's perspective, wouldn't be a sound decision on the part of staff to bring that forward without that information. To not have an understanding of the environmental process clearly laid out in an entire process with price breakdowns and an understanding of all the technical documents that will be required for it, would not be able to give you an informed kind of understanding of the process and costs that'll be necessary for each of the alternatives. And the same thing, you know, not understanding the entire process of mothballing and what that truly means and what that cost breakdown will be is not going to be helpful for you. So the staff is trying to develop all of these alternatives and to have a very well developed, as you saw, if any of you have read the previous council report, you will see a very detailed report that was developed to try to potentially provide information to council so they can make a very well-informed decision, finally, in regards to a particular process, since this has been going on for quite a long time. And staff wants a decision. Staff would support a decision being made by council. In the end, it's council's decision, but we want to make sure that when we get to council, that there will not be a need for us to be continued in return for a need for additional information. The expectation is when we go to council again, that we hopefully have everything that they will need to make an informed decision to allow this to move forward. So while it may appear to be somewhat of a delay, it's not the intention. The intention is to make sure that they can make an informed decision and move this along. And that's staff's goal, and then hopefully that will kind of move through commissions after council direction.
So what is that, 6 months, 3 months, a year?
It's going to council on May 11th. So.
And they'll have all the information at that point, or they'll.
They will have the legal analysis, which I just saw today. So they'll have the legal analysis available. We'll have the proposals from David J. Powers in regards to the environmental process. And then we currently have, potentially there may be some revisions to it, but we'll also have the reports, the process and the process outline and the cost outline for the ARG process for each of the alternatives. And then we will also have the cost of the historic resource evaluation, which will be part of that. So
I want to understand, what are the alternatives? You said mothballing, destruction, adaptive reuse, and what?
And a full restoration.
Full restoration. Okay, so I don't know. I haven't seen anything that shows full restoration. We saw one for adaptive reuse about 3 years ago. That was the $3.5 million. And the Lebowski one, to my knowledge, hasn't been priced, but it would certainly be one of the cheaper alternatives for adaptive reuse. And people in the city are willing to fund it, but they're not going to fund other things.
I understand.
The residents are willing to fund, but not if they do some weird thing.
It's some weird thing.
Well, knock it down, mothballing it. Adaptive reuse, that's so huge. I mean, $3.5 million, that was what, 4 years ago? Probably that thing would cost now about $5 million.
We've had these alternatives for
Yeah.
many years, right? And they've had price tags. So anyway, Sean, I applaud your efforts as staff to provide council with thorough information for them to give direction.
Agreed.
I would advise that it's just to be honest and acknowledge Dave Breeze is the primary lead. Though I may provide input in regards to historical issues, Dave Breeze is leading the charge on organizing and pursuing all of those related documents I've described. Thankfully, because it's quite a bit of work.
Has Dave Breeze seen the Lebowski proposal?
Yes, he's all of staff have reviewed it. Yes, we're all aware of it.
Aware of it or seen it?
Aware of it and seen it. Yeah, all of us participated in the previous Park and Rec Commission meeting.
Great.
And we're there. Yeah.
I'd like to say, my understanding was that council directed the three commissions, historical, Park and Rec, and finance, to go do their homework and come back to council with recommendations. And I was online for the very animated Park and Rec Commission meeting that addressed the topic, and the two commissioners presented very opposing sorts of alternatives, demolition and restore, and I think there was a procedural problem with the meeting, that they were not able to go forward because there was not a full up.
They didn't have a quorum.
They had a quorum, but not, I guess they had a quorum for their meeting, but not enough to go forward. I'm not sure how that worked out. Anyway, it was a very animated meeting. And the two reports that Park and Rec came up with, I think properly, reflect the community's understanding. You have the tear it down side and the restore it side. And they're there's no in between. It's a bimodal distribution. So I think that's where we left it. I was hoping that historical could come in, make a recommendation, and Park and Rec and Finance could make their recommendations to council so that we can move forward. So I'm still a little bit confused. Where are we now in terms of making recommendations to council so that they can make action?
I think people didn't want to have any more of those animated meetings, so that plan was put aside.
No, I think to try to answer your question, so I think where we're at is after the Park and Rec Commission meeting, city manager was there. Is that, it is very bifurcated in regards to the public's response, and there was an informed decision made that there were significant public policy decisions that potentially had not been made by council that needed to guide some of the commission's decision-making process. And in addition, there was significant information that wasn't available in order for each of the commissions to make informed decisions. And so I know that there are a series of previous reports, and we've seen all those reports that have been provided over the last 10, 15 years over Halsey House. However, demolition of a structure is a very complex process, especially if that's a process that needs to go down. And the implications can result in legal implications for the city, especially if the environmental report is not developed appropriately. And we wanted to make sure that that if the council chooses the direction of demolition and in a result adaptive reuse, that it's based on a very informed decision of the legal implications and a full knowledge of the process that's required and the cost that's required for each of those options. And what was presented to the commission, while helpful for Park and Rec, wasn't as fully developed as it could have been. And there was a lack, at least from staff's perspective, of sufficient policy directions from council. And that's what we're hoping to get from council, is that guidance and the information that will be necessary for you to understand the legal implications, the cost implications, and the process. And it will be coming forward to you. And I'm sorry that it's not before you tonight. The administration, the city manager's office made a decision in consultation with other executive team members, and we're not to bring it to this commission or any commission until the council has provided their input. But thereafter, we will bring it forward to you.
If I may just say something, all of our questions, I think Commissioner Moore and Bartlett, and actually I didn't even articulate mine, reflect that there was an expectation that we were going to give some direction. And I remember, in fact, writing to you, Sean, and you clarified. So some things went on that we were not aware of. That's what I think you're just disclosing to us. Is that correct?
No, I just think that, if for any commissioner that participated in the Park and Rec or participated or viewed the Park and Rec Commission meeting, it provided an understanding of a lot of the complexities of the decision that potentially needed to be made, and raised a lot of concerns regarding some of the lack of direction that potentially the commission maybe didn't have or needed to have from council, and that staff needed to have, so that each of you could make very informed decisions regarding that. And so that is why, as a result of that meeting, the city manager believed it was necessary to return to council, even though that was potentially contrary to the direction that council originally gave. He thought it was in the best interest of the decision-making process for us to return. And I think that when you do have this back before you, I think you'll be appreciative of all of the information that'll be available to you to be able to make a very sound, informed decision on each of the alternatives, which we've not had previously. But any previous process has not had the level and detail that is coming, but which will be coming before each of you. So I think, I think although it's taking a number of months to develop this, it's hopefully to try to have a decision finally made so that this is not something we're revisiting in 10 years or 5 years as another discussion item. The goal is to try to hopefully get a decision made, whatever direction that'll be. And that's really for the commissions to give that input to the council as advice, and then it's for the council to make those difficult decisions.
Well, if we choose to mothball it, it'll definitely be revisited in 5 or 10 years.
Yes, potentially, yes. That's one of them that would.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Show me the money from city council.
And I mean,
They're not gonna put any money in, you might as well tear it down.
We have Madam Mayor here.
Well, yeah, but it's not on the budget, it's not on the CIP.
okay. Any more comments on the topic? I think you're kind of ran it to the ground a little bit.
Oh,
Sure,
maybe-
I'll just say clearly I'm listening and I'm intentionally not commenting because this is an agenda item that will come to us in a couple weeks. And so I'm being very careful, but I'm listening. I am.
Okay, very
Asa, ask to see the Lebowski report. Don't make a decision without it.
So I'm being very careful here in what I say. And I thought Sean, a matter of fact, I was going to jump in earlier, but Sean was doing such a great job explaining the process. I just turned my video back off, but I'll just say, the whole idea is to go through the analysis that Sean described. And so, for example, we have 4 options, and the adaptive reuse project or proposal from Jeff Lebowski, it's just one of many ways you could do adaptive reuse. And similar to, demolition or just redoing the whole structure. So there are many options and many projects that could support one of the options. And so it's not for council to look at a particular proposal, like the Lebowski proposal, and say, that's what we want. It's more of the 4 options, and based on cost, legal issues, time, like all the other things that Sean said, which of those 4 options do we as a community want to support? And then if we do pick adaptive reuse, then I think that's when we start looking at, okay, what are the different ways adaptive reuse could work for this site? And so we're not there yet to start looking at specific projects.
May I say, Madam Mayor, it is an honor that you are here to hear us. And since I have been on this commission, which I think Sean I've been on this commission for 6 years or so.
No.
5? No, less than.
Yeah, because I haven't been on it for 6 years, and I think you came after me. So probably 5, I don't know.
A long time.
Long time.
We're history here, and what you're hearing is how many, the very first meeting I attended as commissioner, Halsey House was on the agenda, and we've heard about it a lot. And so there is this way that there's, I guess here there is some historical memory. That's what we have, which is very valuable, I think. And the more power to you with respect to, all of the procedures that need to be adhered to make a good decision. And all I think, I guess I'm going to say as a commissioner, please make a decision. Let's get this resolved for all the good reasons that you know of. What's best for the community.
Thanks, Commissioner Horn. And to Commissioner Lang's point earlier, and staff is working on this and they've already done a good job where they've really explained for each of the options what it really means. So without seeing a specific project, they're able to articulate to us when we say adaptive use, what that really means. So thank you, Chair, for allowing me to talk briefly.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. For myself, I really would like to, move the project forward somehow or some way. It's just been hanging out there a long time. I remember our colleague, Commissioner Chapman, I think he turned out, but I remember him saying his first meeting was about Halsey House. And now he's turned out. I think it's really time to just move forward. So anyway, I guess we now understand that we're back to council for direction, understanding the 4 developed alternatives, and they'll come back to the commissions and we'll take action forward.
I just want to remind you all, though, that tearing it down is not the end of it, because there will be a suit.
Yes, exactly. Commissioner Page, were you going to offer something? No? Okay, all right. I thought you were motioning for.
Wife just came in, just asked me a question. It's like, oh, okay. Whatever.
All right. Sorry. I thought you were going to chime in. All right. Okay. So back to the agenda. We have finished the staff report, and that actually closes the agenda. So any more items to discuss before we entertain a motion to adjourn?
To the chair, so there's commissioners' reports and potential future agenda items before adjournment.
Okay. Any future, I know we had action from last month about the process for historical trees from Commissioner Page. I don't understand how that process could work, or what, if it is a process that we can follow. How do we do this? How do we nominate and approve historical trees or groves?
So what I can do, because starting in May we have the return of one of our planners, because right now we're at 50% staffing. So one of our planners returns May 1st full time. So it's pretty fantastic for us. So I can potentially dedicate some time to look into the previous or the only application that we've had for designation of a site, and then I can bring that forward as an informational item or as an item so that we can go over that process next month, if you'd like, because I'll have capacity to do that for you, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay. So.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
I think our baby is trying to address the meeting. So,
A young commissioner.
yes.
This is the future mayor.
Now is,
Can't really hear you, Kirk.
oh, sorry. Can a historic, like the apricot orchard in front of City Hall, I know, can that be on 2 different lists? Can it be a historical point of interest as well as historic trees?
So the orchard is both a historic landmark, and it's also a state historic point of historical interest. So it's both at the state level, but then it's the highest recognized historic resource in the city, which is a landmark. Right. It potentially also could be historic. Recognized due to being, a tree, a grouping of trees, and we could look into that for you. because it's really, you know, the historic preservation ordinance doesn't really specify like an independent process for tree designation. So I will need to go back and read all of the previous reports in regards to how they potentially uniquely designated the grouping of palm trees previously. So I'll have to look at that.
In particular, there's a page on the website that outside of Historical Commission is just entitled Tree Removal, which actually lists the heritage tree designation, in particular the ones on Rinconada Court. I think the only ones besides the apricot orchard. And you know, clearly one of the things that would need to be considered is the way this works with the ordinance about tree removal, because like there already is a rule about trees that are 48 inches in circumference. You gotta get a permit. So we want to make sure we don't make it more complicated.
So with respect to the apricot orchard, is Sean and Larry, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, the trees are not designated because we put new trees in all the time and there are some trees that die. So it's about the fact that this is, you know, a landmark that contains Blenheim apricot trees, you know, et cetera, but it's not individual trees, right? That's my understanding.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I think that part of this is that between that one and the Rinconada Court, it's confusing what exactly it means.
So typically when it comes to the designation of trees, they're typically recognized as kind of living heritage items. And so over time they do get replaced. And so just like our orchard is a representation of a particular time period, it's a living historical feature in the city. And so I don't believe any of the original trees that were originally there when they were designated are there any longer. They've been replaced with it, but it's still historic because it represents a particular feeling and time period that is historic for the city.
Right. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Anything further for future items on the agenda?
So we will at some point this year have a historic resource item for 151 Hawthorne, which is going to be a rehabilitation. Sadly, it appears over the last year, COVID has really impacted, while it's not impacted single family development or ADU development, it appears to have really impacted the submittal of historical applications because we have seen our applications drop off a cliff for this year. So as you're aware, we typically have sometimes between 5 and 10 applications a year, and we've had none really this year. It's just been our work item. So this is hopefully an anomaly because of COVID. But I have spoken to 151 Hawthorne. It was on the market a number of months ago in January. And there was a lot of concern because there was a lot of many potential homeowners that were interested in demolishing the site. And so I spoke to each of them, and then thankfully a homeowner purchased it that wanted to rehabilitate it and do an addition off the back. So that's something that's going to be coming forward this year, probably more later in the year. So it'll be something for Commissioner Page, who's not been involved with the process of an addition and Secretary of the Interior Standards. Previous to that meeting, we'll make sure that I'll direct you to some of the trainings that are available that'll be informative. It'll be nice to have a particular project available for the commission again.
Okay.
Is there anything happening with the plaques, historical plaques?
No, there is nothing happening with historic plaques at the moment. Yeah, I'm sorry to say. There is, we have the Preservation Award and we have the Margaret Thompson Essay Contest. Plaque requests will go out. I have to coordinate with our executive admin. I do not have, with us being at half staff, I do not have the capacity for it at the moment, but even in the essay contest, I'm bringing in someone, our executive admin, to do things for me because I don't have the time at all at the moment. But once May rolls around and we have one additional staff member, and then June 1st, we should have another staff member, then it should return to a little bit semblance of normality in the planning
Good.
department. Thank you for your patience regarding that.
Yeah, but if we can help, you know.
Most of the things that's required is just writing. We have to write each of them and follow up. It's kind of, we write, we follow up, and then we get maybe, out of all the writing, we get maybe 2 or 3 people now to respond. So we will do that, but probably at the beginning of May, especially once I have some capacity. I'll work with our admin to get those out for you.
Goodness, you can actually get people back. We still are going to be out until September.
Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Since I worked in the city of Palo Alto, they don't plan on bringing us back until September. So I think I applaud Sean for being able to get staff back in the office.
Okay, coming back to our meeting. Do we have any further items for future agenda items?
Halsey House.
Well, thanks. That's like an incumbent, I think, anyway, for now. Okay, I think we've gone through our agenda, so I will make a move to adjourn.
I second it.
Nomi seconds. So with that, we will declare ourselves. I don't have my hammer anymore.
No, you have to vote for it.
Larry.
You're voting yes.
Yeah, we have to
All in
vote for it.
Okay.
You don't just second it and then that's it. You have to vote for it. So
All
I
in
vote.
favor, say
Let's go.
aye.
Aye.
All right.
All ayes.
If somebody votes no, they get to stay by themselves.
That's right.
Hi, Seppi.